What's up, Internet, and welcome back to the Engadget podcast. I'm Senior Editor Devindra Hardwar. This week, I'm joined by Deputy Editor Nathan Ingram. Hey, Nate.
Good morning, Devindra.
Good morning. And also podcast producer Ben Elman is here. Hey, Ben.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Hello. It's a week of the New York Auto Show, which we've been covering. Specifically, Sam Rutherford has been there quite a bit, and he couldn't join us because he's taking some much-needed rest. But we'll be talking about some of the news he wrote up there and other announcements from the show. As they relate to like EVs and the cars that Engadget typically covers, there's some fun stuff there. And there's also some really stupid stuff going on in the world. And we will, of course, dive into that. Like over the weekend, just multiple tariff stuff. Like this tariff is
Impossible to keep track of.
It's impossible to keep track of. We have been following all of that. So we'll dive into that stuff. And hey, there's a whole bunch of other stories. There's a really great NPR report about how Doge was taking sensitive labor data. And we'll dive into kind of what all that means. As always, folks, if you're enjoying the show, please be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice. Leave us a review on iTunes and drop us an email at podcast@engadget.com. And you can also join us Thursday mornings around 11 a.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel. We do live stream there. We often do Q&A. We show off gadgets. It's a fun time. Join us. Let me just pull up this thing because I want to shout out the guy who maybe we'll be talking about. Also, stay tuned to the end of this episode because I'll be interviewing Isaiah Saxon, the director of The Legend of Ochi. It's a new movie about a young girl who finds a, mysterious forest creature that she's trained to kill and she chooses not to. We'll be talking specifically about the special effects involved in that. And if you like old school special effects, like old puppet Yoda, old fantasy films, there's a lot of that. This movie has a great mixture of CG
Practical effects.
and practical effects. It's beautiful.
They do any miniatures?
I believe there's a lot of miniature work too.
Nice.
It's mainly the creatures look amazing. So stay tuned for our chat around that. All right, let's dive right into the New York Auto Show. And I feel like people were really interested in what Kia was doing because Kia, I feel like, has been really killing it with the EV6 and the EV9. And they have announced the Kia EV4, which is their first electric sedan. Just pure sedan. It's not a little hatchback like the EV6. It's not a big SUV like the EV9. It is a sedan that looks like you kind of honestly, it looks like you chop the EV6 off a bit at the end or like cut off a bit.
Yeah, the cutoff at the trunk is definitely throwing me off a little bit.
Yeah.
But it does kind of fit with like the design language of the rest of their cars.
Yeah.
That's maybe not how I would have done it, but I'm not an auto designer, so
Maybe it's just the angle of it. It kind of looks like a coupe or coupe. I can't even tell.
Yeah, when you look at there's a shot directly from the side. It looks a lot more standard than the one at the angle, I would say.
Mm-hmm. This is a cool car. I don't. So Nate, you and I have talked a little bit about EVs and kind of where we're headed. I know Sam, as he's been testing this stuff, he got a really good lease for the Mustang. The Ford Mustang.
Oh, yep.
EV, which not many people like, but they ended up putting out cheap lease deals out there. So like top level advice from what I'm seeing, especially as people are looking at getting cars ahead of like whatever tariffs are going to do for prices, don't buy new EVs. Like don't buy them outright. Leasing them, you may find some good deals though. And as always, buying a used car, there are some good used EVs out there. I don't know about jumping into Tesla at this point, even though their prices fell. But buying a used EV is a good idea. Like the Hyundai Ioniq, there are a whole bunch of those from 2021, 22 that are out there for decent prices. So
my question about getting used at this point is mostly like, are you getting the same? Like, I feel like there's a lot of advances happening quickly in the space, right? So like a car from 2022 might feel a lot older than if you got like a more established platform, right? That's a few years old, but
yeah, if it's more about like how hard people have driven the car, how much have they recharged the battery, has the battery degraded somewhat? It is true that charging standards have changed quite a bit over the last few years. So if you buy a used car, you will not get one. Like I think the newer cars tend to have the Tesla connection, the North American connection, but kind of not a big deal. You could still plug into other chargers out there if you are going to be charging at home, which most people are going to be doing. I feel like that gets lost a lot in the EV discussion. Like the whole idea is you're buying this thing that you can most likely recharge quite a bit at your house, and you don't have to go to gas stations often.
Unless you're a road tripper, right?
Yeah, unless you're a road tripper, and honestly, that's where things kind of get rough and get tougher. But Yeah, good. EVs just don't hold their value, I think, because the tech has changed so much. But the actual
Makes
quality of the
sense.
car is still like you've got CarPlay, you've got the good tech. Because I'm still
Yep.
seeing, I've been like considering buying a second car as just like a thing that could be really helpful for our family because sometimes the kids have
Mhm.
to be in different places, or me and my wife have to be in different places, and a cheap EV is kind of ending up as the same price as like a Prius from over 10 years ago. It's kind of wild. It's
That
kind of
is
wild
crazy.
where things
Yeah.
are.
I was based on your prompting this yesterday. I looked at
Yeah.
the Ionic 5 from, I think, yeah, 2022. I saw one that had about 50,000 miles and it was like 20, it was low 20s. I was like,
Not
that's a,
bad.
seems like a great deal.
Not bad at all. 50,000 miles in a car, especially an EV where you don't have like transmission issues. That's good. That's not
Yeah.
bad at all. Let's talk about some of the other stuff from the New York
Yep.
Auto Show. Subaru also showed off their second EV, the Subaru Trail Seeker,
Yep.
which
It's a very Subaru.
is very Subaru.
I love Subaru, and they're sort of killing me a little bit because my car is 12 years
New
old, and
Outback.
I'd love. What's that?
Did you see the new Outback?
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
No, I did not. But I know basically, I'm like, I want them to make either a good hybrid or a good EV, and they haven't really done either yet.
Yeah.
Although this year, I think they're finally putting out a Crosstrek hybrid, which is their like little crossover thing. But I'd rather have a straight hatchback. But this is a car that I consider buying. It seems like the Trail Seekers is using their old platform. They haven't fully transitioned to like
Yeah.
whatever it's going to be. And I'm just like, why? Like, I'm sure there are lots of reasons why, but it's just taking them so long to like get on board with this stuff. A few other car makers are like that too. Like Toyota only has one EV
Yeah.
still, and it's not very good.
They
But at
really
least they're
are.
killing the hybrid game.
Yeah, they're sharing Toyota's EV platform, so that's kind of why Subaru and Toyota feel a little behind. They just
Yep.
those folks were so successful in their own like field, right? Toyota was just like, "Hey, everybody wants our hybrids. We don't need to worry
Yep.
about EVs." Subaru is like, "We're gonna go after the outdoorsy folks, the people who want
Yep.
very specialized cars," and they have always really kicked butt there. So I
Yep.
want to show off the look at the new Subaru Outback, which is
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of this front end. I'm not a fan of a lot of this. This
It
doesn't
looks like the Forester to me, which is like they're kind of like
like
in
more.
between like a big SUV and like the wagon that the Outback was. But I'm
Yeah,
thinking
the
people don't
Outback
want
has
wagons, right? So
slowly gotten bigger and bigger. They've made the
yeah,
Outback
it's
more
huge now.
less wagon, more of like a mini SUV almost, and this one just like full on SUV. But it's also
Yep.
ugly. It's just so ugly. I mean, I'm looking at this thing. I don't like the front grille. I don't like the weird boxy lines of it.
The
Um,
front of cars in general are so aggressively huge these days. I'm just over it.
well,
It's like let's just end it with a square.
yeah. So the Trail Seeker, Subaru's second EV, kind of looks a little sleeker. I think. I think the
It
front
does.
doesn't look as aggressive and it looks very Subaru-y. If you're in the market for that, that's something to pay attention to. Kia is also doing a Nightfall edition of the EV9. This is
Yep.
a white one with like black accents, black wheels, black trim. Even the inside, the seats are black. I really like the EV9. If I could lease an EV9 right now, for under a decent amount of money, like that probably would be worth it.
That's a big
Uh,
car.
yeah, it's a beautiful car. Genesis X showed off the X Grand Equator concept, which is
That
a
hood is wild.
this whole thing is wild. This is
Yeah.
a luxury overlander concept. We don't even know if it's an EV, but from the front of it, given that it has no grille, this is most likely an EV because it has kind of a Rivian, bar of lights there.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of that, but big wheels, big front. This just looks cool. This looks like a car you'd see on like Mad Max or something.
It has some like weird. It has like it does retro future in a way that I don't hate. Unlike many other cars, I feel like.
Yeah. Lucid showed off the Gravity, which is their Lucid has had an EV or they've had like a sedan for a while. But the Gravity is their big SUV play. It looks really cool. I like
And for this one, they're saying up to 450 range and 200 miles in 11 minutes. So for me, I'm like, that's the car I could take and drive around, both at home and way out into the backwoods of New England and not have to worry about the charging quite so much.
you could. Again, I feel like people are overplaying like a normal gas car, right? Like my
Yeah,
SUV,
yeah.
you fill up the gas tank, it gets 300 miles. But
Mhm.
you assume like, okay, you can find a gas station and recharge. 400 miles, like how much are you going to trek through New England, without
No, no, I mean it's true. Yeah, like I've been going between Boston and Philly a few times recently. It's like I think about that a little bit, but that's the furthest I'd probably do in like one day, like a six. I mean, unless I'm like really going for it. So yeah, it would be
Okay,
fine.
so
It's just like I think
Boston, is that like 400 miles? 300,
not
400?
even. No, not even. I think probably
Yeah.
closer to 300 and change.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I'm like it's right on that line where you could do it in one go if you had like basically I'm like, I want a car that can reliably go 300 miles on a charge. And with that, I
I
would be like,
mean, those numbers, and again, PSA for anybody considering an EV, those numbers are very hopeful. Those are very hopeful numbers because if it's hot in the summer and you're blasting your AC, that number is going down. If you're going too
if it's
fast,
cold and you're
yeah, if it's cold and you're pumping the heat, that number's going down. If you don't have a heat pump, which some EVs don't, which is the more efficient way to generate heat, you're going to be using more of your battery to generate heat. If you're going too fast on the highway, that's kind of the main reason to get a really high range EV is because you're taking into account all these things that could be killing your battery life. If you're going way
yeah,
too fast on the highway, that's kind of one thing. Hyundai also showed off an Ioniq 5 NTA spec, which it's a race car. It's a cute little race car
love it.
performance spec. Um, I didn't see this one. Maserati GT2 Stradale.
Yeah, he just added this because it's a bonkers,
It is
high
bonkers.
performance traditional, ICE, which is fun to take pictures of. And Sam takes awesome pictures, so
That's true.
I'll
I mean,
allow it. I'll allow it.
this is not an EV. Don't buy Maseratis, people. These are bad for people
What
who.
I'm
Keep
not
going though. The next
seeing,
one.
Yeah.
so what I'm not seeing is many pictures of the main driver consoles because remember a few weeks ago we were talking about how there's too much screen
Hmm.
in all of these cars, and Europe is actually changing its standards so that you actually need more buttons.
Yep.
Thank you, Europe.
Thank you,
Ugh,
Europe.
I
I don't
wish.
think you can get inside views of some of these because of I don't
Yeah.
know how they block off the cars, but that is a good point. This Maserati, yeah, again, Maserati is for they are not high quality, expensive cars. If you're gonna dump that money, there are much nicer things you can spend money on. This one looks cool. I wish I would love to see more EV concepts from them. This one down here is really funny. The Chrysler Six
Yep.
prototype. Is
I
this
love that.
did they make an EV version of
No,
the old school Chrysler, or is they just
I don't
redoing the
think
old car?
so. I think they just, yeah, it was a prototype from 1924.
Oh,
Um, but at the time, it was cutting edge, and inflation makes it about a
this
$29,000 vehicle.
this is a literal 1924 prototype, so it's not like an updated version of it. That's what I was thinking at first. It was from
Let's do a little bit of theater of the mind for this one. Remember the cars from like any period movie where they kind of look a little bit like I guess a Rolls Royce. Like there is some of the old car design in
Mhm.
Rolls Royces, and it's not just the hood ornament.
Yeah.
And I thought this was an EV, but no, it seems like it's
No.
just bringing it back. It's got white walled tires and another tire on the back there. Um, it looks really cool, but like, who is going to be driving this around?
No, I
Like,
I
that's
mean,
would.
something that you drive around on Sundays just to have people say, "Oh, wow, look at that old car."
I mean, people do that for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you one of my favorite movies is Miller's Crossing, the Coen Brothers movie, and this is the 1920s gangsters would be driving
Oh yeah.
or six or something like that. So it is cool, but I want to talk about the specs because it was the industry's first four-wheel hydraulic brakes, a six-cylinder engine, whopping 68 horsepower. You'd have some amazing races with Tommy guns in this thing. It is cool to see. Like it's cool to see old cars alongside the newer tech.
You know
Always.
what this is reminding me of? This is a really nerdy one, but in Forza Horizon 5, you can get some like really old cars, right? And their rating is like D out of like, up to like S2 or whatever. So they're very slow. And so one time just for kicks, I decided to use one of those in the like 30-mile like around Mexico race that takes,
Mhm.
18, 20 minutes when you're in a car that goes fast. And this just took so long. And there's no way to pass anybody because you have no power. So you're just like four cars in a line going very slowly, and like maybe you'll drift or draft and pass one of them. It was ridiculous. I couldn't finish it. It was taking far too long, but
You just
it was a
put around those things.
yeah.
Um, for listeners, this is a good time to look at if you have been thinking about upgrading your car, if you've been thinking about getting another car. Whatever the tariffs are going to do to new car prices and even existing car prices, like dealers are going to mark those things up. It doesn't matter if this car was already on their lot and all of a sudden it's worth more. It's because the market it's gonna make it worth more, sort of like what happened during COVID. So now is a good
Right.
time to look if you need something. I will tell you all.
Dema-
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying demand for used obviously is going to go up in the same fat rate. Like it's going to drive like new stuff will be too expensive. People will get used. The used prices go up. It's just all going to be bad.
And
Probably. Who knows?
new cars are almost always too expensive. They are never a good deal financially because the minute you drive it off the lot, it's worth like significantly less. The sweet spot is like a 3 to 4 year old car that has come right off a lease, is not too doesn't have too many miles on it, is still relatively modern in terms of tech, but you can get a really nice car for much less. But it's wild seeing what's happening to some EVs because I've been looking at like the BMW i3, which is that cute little sucker that they've been producing since like 2013, 2014, and it looked really futuristic when it came out. And you look at that car today, it's still like, man, you look different. You just look kind of cool, and you can get that for under $15,000 for 2014 to 2018 model years with not too many miles on them. The downside with a lot of those older EVs is that you really have limited range. It's like the Nissan Leaf. So I wouldn't buy a really early i3 because you get like 70 miles of range, max. But the 2017 and beyond models, they added a bigger battery that can get up to 125 miles. And that's not too bad if you just want like a little commuter to take around town or to like drive in your local area. Most people do not drive that much. And I think like something like that. It is a cute little guy. I was like giving myself a goal. What can I find for under $15,000? Because I don't want to give up too much money right now. Who knows what's going to happen to the economy? How much is food going to cost in just a few months? Who knows? I was initially being like, I could just get a dumb, boring Prius, right? The Prius V, which is the wagon version of the Prius. And again, that's in under those prices, but a lot of Prius Vs are more expensive than this BMW i3. I was looking at the Volkswagen e-Golf, which is really cute sucker too, like a cute little car with basically
That
100.
was barely available here though, huh? Right. It was very like I feel like they only made it for a couple of years.
It's still, I mean, they made it for a while. There are a lot of these models online, like
Oh,
on
interesting.
on other places. So people like it too. So I've never really considered that car before because of the low range, but as a little around town car, that's not bad. Like I would totally do it for that price. So let us know, folks, if you are in or if you're doing this kind of research, what are you finding when it comes to cars? Are you considering an EV with a smaller battery? Because I think if you rarely drive beyond like 50 miles in a day, which is a lot of people, you don't need a big battery. You can kind of just make that your little around town car. Maybe you have another car for road trips or whatever. Let us know what you think. Podcastinggadget.com. And yeah. And I will also say, stay tuned for more news from the New York Auto Show. We may be there later on. This thing's running into next week, so there's probably more stuff coming out of it. Stay tuned to Engadget for more news from the New York Auto Show.
Okay, and then I'll switch things around so they make a little bit more sense. Okay, chat, we can talk about the auto show a little bit if you want. If you have any other questions, now is your time to throw them out.
If we have questions, if not, we can just keep going and save it all for the end. Let me log into New York Times here because we're talking about a story that I have not seen yet.
It's pretty straightforward.
Oh yeah,
It's
Yeah, I broke it out into points in the document as well.
because the last
so
one.
the one you were thinking of, Devindra, was the uh, antitrust in search
Yes.
specifically, and this is in ads.
Okay. Okay. Do we have questions or should we just keep going? I think we
Let's take a second to talk to chat.
who's here? Who's here, folks?
So Declan says, wait for the tariffs to kick in and drive auto prices up. If it's got 4 wheels and an engine, they're going to figure out a way to get it back on the road. Yeah.
I mean, we are headed to a Mad Max future where the tech you've got, you're going to want to keep that going forever. But also, if you're trying to sell a car, probably worth waiting for things to kick off a little bit. Yeah.
Wait for it to become a buyer's market.
Yeah, and honestly, it is probably a good time to buy a used Tesla, but then that means that you own a
Don't
used
buy a
Tesla.
No.
Don't buy. You're gonna get egged. You're gonna get like something's gonna happen. For the longest time, I used to be like, used Tesla is actually not a bad deal, no matter what you think of Elon Musk. But this year, he has made it, and we will talk about other reasons why you probably don't want to do that right now. But that's your money, so do what you want, but accept the middle fingers towards you if you're driving a Tesla at the end of this year.
It seems like a lot of the ire is really focused on the Cybertruck, and I like wonder why that is.
Well, because,
I can get into
I
that.
mean,
yeah, you wonder.
go off,
Because
Nate. Go off,
that's
Nate.
the one car that he designed himself, so to speak. And it's
That's
really
his the Homer.
stupid and impractical. And
It's
you
in,
know, it only has come out since he's really done the full heel turn to being a complete, Nazi asshole. So I think it's slightly more reasonable for people who have older ones to be like, oh, well, I didn't know he was so bad, even though he's been terrible for at least 5 years if you paid any attention to him. No, Teslas are driving MAGA hats at this point.
basically, well, and the Cybertruck has always been an example of like, look at this big dumb thing. I hate this thing. I hate seeing it on the road. I want to throw something at it. Even
Oh
before
yeah.
he went full,
Hmm.
full mega.
I guess it's also kind of similar to, let's say, like Hummer, circa 2004, 2005, or even earlier than that.
It's
It's
just
just like, look
Yeah.
at how much gas I can guzzle.
yeah. And if I've seen the Hummer EV around, just a truly obnoxious vehicle. I think just as obnoxious as the Cybertruck too. Like, look at this highly inefficient EV.
Hmm.
But yeah, I've seen a lot of backlash against Teslas in general, but people are backlashing against all of EVs because it turns out people are not very smart about what's Tesla and what's not. So there's a
Oh
So
lot
right.
of dumb stuff happening.
Mears Nook said, I can't speak for everyone in the Bay Area, but a lot of people dislike Tesla drivers here because they're straight up bad drivers.
There's also
Um,
that too. Yep.
I
Yeah.
mentioned this on Blue Sky, but a few weeks ago, I was in the Bay Area. I was like exploring one of those tiny towns in like Marin County. And so like you could only get it by or get to where I was going by one of those 2-lane kind of rural roads with the broken yellow line.
Yep.
And someone overtook me through the broken yellow line. Like that's one of the most dangerous passes you could do because you could hit an oncoming car.
You could.
And when the car settled in front of me, I noticed that it was a Tesla with 2 very thin strips of tape over the Tesla badge, as if to say, don't blame me.
Don't blame you. If it was it a dotted line, Ben? Because then I don't know, was it a legal pass or were they just
Oh yeah, no, it was the broken yellow line that you find in rural roads. So like,
so
yes, that was a fine thing to
Legal
do, but
but
it's
dangerous
always
anyway.
yeah,
Yep.
it's always surprising.
it is obnoxious. I do find that, hey, down here in Georgia, you don't even need the broken yellow lines. People just do
You'll
it.
just do it.
Idiots. There is a ton of that.
So Ron C says, according to Aria, while the muscle car category is expanding to include electric options, not all muscle cars are EVs. The classic models still reign supreme in this genre. It depends on. I mean, I'm not going to argue a official definition, but if you're talking about torque,
Hmm.
don't EVs like really rule in that area?
It's just it's stupid. It's a stupid instant torque. Like EV, a muscle car kind of has to push gas and everything to make it work. We know that's a big advantage of EVs, but it's a very different thing too. Like the work a muscle car has to do versus what an EV does. I do think a lot of EVs have gotten too fast. I don't think the big ones like the Rivians should be as fast as they are. Nobody needs an 800 horsepower car, certainly not a giant one. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, I mean, okay, you're talking about fast, but like you want to be able to pull stuff also. The issue with
Horsepower necessarily do it. You need torque in general. Yeah.
yeah, but the issue with EVs, especially if you're towing, is like
Mhm.
that really draws down on the
Yes.
battery life.
Yes.
So
It's so many things. All right, we got a bunch of news stories to go through.
yep.
So I just want to jump into it. All right. Let's move into some other. No, sorry. All right. let's jump into some other news. And here's a breaking story that's actually happened as we started recording this podcast. So I've not fully read it yet, but basically, New York Times is reporting that a judge says that Google is a monopolist in online advertising technology. And this may sound, I don't know, familiar because a judge ruled a few years ago that Google is a monopolist in search. So this is a whole another time, like another strike against Google, basically. Here's a quote from the ruling judge, Leonie Brinkema. In addition to depriving rivals of the ability to compete, this exclusionary conduct substantially harmed Google's publisher customers, the competitive process, and ultimately consumers of information on the open web. Separate part of the quote. Part of that business stems from the acquisition of DoubleClick. Oh, I remember this. An advertising company for 3.1 billion in 2008. Google now has an 87% market share in ad selling technology, according to the government. End quote. Yeah, we've talked about this, and we've talked about like how Google being such a search advertising giant honestly has been bad for the internet and has been bad for Google as a product company too, because they just cannot escape this. Nate, any thoughts on this? Because I feel like you're a little more Google friendly than I am. You're a Chromebook fan. What do you think?
I mean, I would say that in the last couple of years, I've definitely started to try and diversify my
Right.
usage of their tools with other things. But yeah, this is not a huge shock, but it's still a huge deal. Given that, yeah, so the ruling that they were, the antitrust ruling over search was only last August, so less than a year.
Yeah.
And some of the remedies that have been proposed from that are really would really change the company in a major way. Like I think spinning off Chrome was one of the
Yeah.
things the government wants them to do, and I think like negotiations over that are going to go on for a long time in terms of what actual things that they have to do. But now you add this onto it, and between the two, the New York Times says it could reshape the 1.88 trillion-dollar company, which yeah would be absolutely wild. I think the question now, obviously, is how much will that happen under the current administration, which is
Mhm.
not unfriendly to monopolies, I would have to say.
But they
There's
hate
no way
big
to.
tech is the thing. Like they do hate the big tech companies in general, right?
True. I mean, yes and no. They've all been, kissing the ring. So I don't know. I mean,
Oh,
that's
we'll
the thing.
talk
Again.
about
There's
that.
no way to know. Any day there could be a different opinion, right? But yeah, like I think we'll have to see how this plays out in terms of like what the remedies are and what the courts force Google to do. But yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
between last year's ruling and this one, like there's going to be change afoot for sure.
And we talked about the thing about bringing, like, basically branching out Chrome and how I guess it kind of sounds good on paper. And honestly, I would like to see what that looks like because I think Google is just bad with its products, right? Google was a search giant that became an advertising giant. And I feel like that just dominated everything. And it's also the reason why we've lost products like Google Reader and Google Wave and other things too. But they just couldn't monetize them in the same way, or those things were a distraction from the core business. Google has never been a product focused company in the way that Apple has. Honestly, even in the way that Microsoft has.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
these are things that have always bugged me about Google. So if you let Chrome be free, be its own thing, maybe that makes Chrome better, and maybe that makes the entire, that could make the entire browsing industry better. I
I
don't
think
know.
you could say the same about Android, right? Like
Yeah.
let that be its own business with its own concerns
Hmm.
and focus on like being better there.
It could. I mean, Android is just so much more pervasive. But yeah, that is certainly an idea
True.
that people popped out there. I don't know. This advertising business is Google. You cannot break that out of Google. So they would have to do like a Ma Bell type thing where they could just like split up into several
Mm.
different companies, maybe, which that helped for a while, like from the old
Until they
days
all just came back together again, right? Like,
together, or like in different forms. Like a future administration will approve certain mergers, and it's just like a cycle we keep repeating. But this is really interesting to see, and kind of related to this
Yeah,
story.
actually, can I broaden this conversation
Go
to talking about just legal momentum and as it's continuing into the Trump administration? Because we did see some new stuff about the Facebook antitrust case as well. Just to take a single step back, the US v like Google LLC thing started in January of 2023. So this is something that happened during the Biden administration and went on into the Trump administration. We'll see like where that goes. In the case of Facebook, it started under the Trump administration. It started
First,
in
The very end.
at the very end of the first Trump administration in late 2020, and um a lot of the analysis on this case was saying like, yes, like Facebook probably has reason to be accused of being a monopoly already, but a likely reason that the Trump administration took this up in the first place was that Trump himself was annoyed at Facebook for doing their like 2020 election integrity work, and the idea
Taking
that
it
like
off
that
the
might
platform too. Like they removed his account after the whole January 6th thing. Like there's a lot of reasons.
this original case was filed in December of
Oh,
2020
that's
though.
true. That's true. Yeah.
So this was before he got kicked off due to January 6th stuff. I think it was literally just like, I'm annoyed that I lost the election. I think the election
Yes.
integrity stuff hurt me. There was all of this information and like all of these kind of postmortems in those couple of months between the presidential transition and everything, where they talked about how like the playbook that they ran in 2016 cratered in 2020 for a bunch of different reasons. But the funny thing is that the original case that was filed by the Trump administration ended up getting thrown out because it didn't have like enough good information. By time it got thrown out, we had the Biden administration, we had Lena Khan, so they tried it again. And this case that's currently going to trial, that Zuck is currently on the stand for, or has been on the stand for the last couple of days this week, is a Lena Khan case that they are continuing with, probably still because Trump is saying like, oh, well, I'm anti-big tech. I'm annoyed at big tech. Zuck tried to kiss the ring so many times. He donated, or had Facebook donate $1 million to the inauguration fund, offered $400 million to make the case go away to the FTC. FTC was like, no, 30 billion.
30
Zuck was like, what about 1 billion? FTC was like, no, 30 billion.
because
And now it's going to,
like they were pointing to the WhatsApp acquisition. They were pointing to the Instagram acquisition. Instagram was $1 billion. WhatsApp was $18 billion.
yeah, it was a huge acquisition.
It was a huge acquisition, and also, Meta settled a $25 million lawsuit from the from Trump directly to
Oh, yeah.
kicking him off the platform. So there's a lot of money flowing around here, and a lot of kissing the ring, and a lot of like Zuck literally brown nosing, like just being such a brown over the last year. Anything else you want to add to that, Ben?
Well, I mean, let's say that they kicked in between these couple of lawsuits and the donations to the inauguration campaign. It's in the realm of 30 million, give or take. You know, it might be 27, 28 million. And look where that got them.
Got them, and also not even that. The sort of philosophical changes Zuckerberg has made, removing fact checking, removing the things that were potentially blocking conservative speech. Those were all the things that the right has always been pissed off about from big tech. And he kind of just like, okay, no more of that. No more of also policies that were about basically, was it protecting equal language or something like that? There was policy about protecting how people were referred to in general. A lot of like just
I
like,
mean, that
hey,
like
we
falls
care,
under the DEI umbrella
yeah,
as
we
well.
care less about actually building a fair platform that's devoted to truth all the time. We will allow some garbage, and do you like me now? Do you like me now, Mr. Trump? Kind of
they were very much like pushing it towards like the X model, I would say,
yeah.
which like I think you have to figure like given the environment that they think that would make them more favorable towards a Trump administration.
I mean, let's
Yeah.
be real. Like Twitter, the Twitter that was the one that started community notes. I think that the X model of using community notes as the only moderation is like the big shift.
that is it. It was old. It was old Twitter pre-Musk that was doing community notes, and I think that was like a good-hearted effort because I've seen community notes has been really useful for a lot of things, and honestly, community notes has worked against Elon Musk, quite a bit to people, and he is spouting garbage. Like people will immediately shut him down. Um,
Yeah, so
mhm.
the Facebook antitrust case is absolutely a developing story, and we will see what happens with both of these cases. I mean, Dev, I don't want to get too far into talking about Microsoft antitrust yet again, but like you can rule that a company is a monopolist and it can still take a heck of a long time to suss everything out, right?
It took a long time. It was late '90s when Microsoft was ruled to be, a monopolist, and then I was literally one of my first, some of my first stories writing in technology in like 2010. It's like, oh,
Or
here's the
about the fallout from that. Yeah.
yeah, here's a pop-up warning to tell you to choose which browser is in your system. It also seems like looking at it now, I feel like a lot of those protections have just gone away. Because if you try to install Chrome in a new Windows installation, when you go to the Chrome website, you'll get a pop-up like in the browser saying, "Hey, you've already got a great browser. You don't need to get Chrome." And Edge is there by default. Edge is your default browser. If you try to make Chrome your default browser, there are some pop-ups that are just like, "Hey, are you sure? Do you need to do this?" Yeah.
So what you're saying
That's
is that it's actually kind of a Dr. Manhattan moment where it's like, it is 2002 and I'm writing about tech antitrust. It is 2022 and I'm writing about tech antitrust.
I mean, it's 1980s. You're writing about AT&T antitrust, like
it's
it is.
Yeah.
just I feel like it's secular. Like all these companies like will like not all of them, but certain ones will find this lane and become so massive and so powerful that like eventually it becomes obvious to even an idiotic government that something needs to be reined in a little bit. But like each time, I think the test is like, what will they actually do about it, right? Like there was the AT&T thing, they got split up, and then there's Microsoft, and there was some degree of whatever wrist slapping that didn't feel super significant to me. And then this time, like the proposed things that the government wants to do with Google because of the search antitrust case were pretty significant. We talked about Chrome obviously being rolled out. There's some other things I'm not remembering right now, but like I was like, oh, this would be like if they got what they wanted, it would be pretty wild. But the negotiation for that will surely take forever.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, ongoing story. We'll be keeping an eye on all this, and we're saying this because this week that whole case is actually happening. So there's been some reporting of
The
Zuckerberg.
Meta one specifically.
The Meta one is happening this week. He's tried so hard to just block that, and all of his efforts just have led to nothing. Um, it is kind of read the who was it? Wall Street Journal had a good report called "Inside Mark Zuckerberg's Failed Negotiations to End Antitrust Case." There's a lot of he just looks so desperate and so sad, and literally just give up any. I don't know if this guy has ever had like actual political ideals or philosophical ideals, but like he just like will give up everything to avoid spending this money or avoid the government taking some action against them.
I mean,
I don't think he
combine
has. He
this.
has no.
Yeah,
Sorry, I just think he has uh, no beliefs whatsoever. He's
he's
just
not
a
a great
stooge looking
pretender.
for money.
Like, yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, combine this with like what we found out with Sarah Wynne Williams' book,
Mhm.
Careless People. So
Yep.
I think
Yep.
that's where we should leave it. Dev, let's talk about tariffs.
God,
Oh joy!
joy. It's I joked before we started recording.
Tariff Thursday.
It feels like we're not just living in enemy of the state territory. We're living in like enemy of the stupid state because it's all
We're also living in like the 1890s where we're talking about, or not 1890s, the 1920s, 1930s with Smoot Hawley and all that.
And that Chrysler
Oh
caution
yeah,
show.
true, true.
impending depression, recession leading to impending depression. It's a lot of stuff we're talking about. But yeah, over the weekend, bear with me because a lot of things happened. But our story right now is that electronics have been exempted from reciprocal tariffs, but will soon be subject to new semiconductor tariffs. And this was a journey because I remember seeing the story. I think it was Friday afternoon. A story dropped that in general, electronics would be exempt from tariffs altogether. And then the Trump administration came in over the weekend and be like, no, 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 that's not That's not forever. We're actually going to have a new category for those, and we're going to have more data about what those are going to be eventually.
There's a few hours of rejoicing, and
A
then
few hours rejoicing, and I told a lot of people, especially like some centristy friends I know, like, do not rejoice. This is no, this
yeah.
is not say this is just like there is something else going to happen. Either he's going to completely change his mind, or there's going to be more details about what's going to happen, and that's basically it. So anyway, this all came after. Let me read Cheyenne McDonald's reporting from Engadget. Um, let me see here. This all comes after Trump imposed a 125% tariff on goods from China, and that was in addition to the 20% tariff, and that brought the tariffs against China to 145%. China itself
Of
applied like
course, this
yeah, or
I was going to say that this, of course, was almost a week ago now. So, like, I don't even know what the China number is at this point. It's probably
the
higher.
numbers are all over the place. But then the Trump administration posed a 90-day pause on other countries, the stupid tariffs that we were talking about weeks ago. But that
And this was just last Wednesday, and the stock market shot up, and then it went right back down because they're like, "Oh wait, there's still tariffs on China, but maybe."
yeah. We will see. So here later, reading later, the newly published exclusions would exempt many devices and parts from both the 10% global tariff and the steeper tariff on China, according to the notice published on Friday. Um, but there will be future semiconductor tariffs. So that will apply to chips, that will apply to electronics and gadgets and everything. What we said last week still applies, folks. Everything is going to get more expensive. Everything. So be prepared to repair your devices now, get everything in working order. If you need to upgrade anything, probably do that now. I'm more worried about things like cost of living and food and all that, but there are so many things that are just kind of a disaster about all this, and kind of related to this too. Sony announced that PlayStation 5 prices are increasing across Europe, UK, and Australia. This comes after they already raised prices.
At least some of those regions, yeah.
Yeah, in some of those regions. So
And
uh,
yesterday they announced they're bumping up PlayStation Plus pricing also, which obviously different than hardware, but kind of part of the same trend for sure.
let me see here. Only the PS5 digital edition cost is changing in Europe and UK. It'll increase to 500 euros, $570, from 450 euros and to 430 pounds, and from that's up from 390 pounds. So decent chunks. And Sony in the past, like this was way before the whole tower thing, they were blaming the supply chain. They were blaming the fact that it was harder to make the PS5, and now it's just like, hey, yeah, the world is going to get, it's just going to be getting tougher, I guess. That's kind of what they're saying, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking about when you said upgrading and stuff. Like my iPhone is about 2 years old. It still works pretty great aside from the battery life. It's awful. I'm like, maybe I'll just put a new I'll just go to the Apple store, pay $100 to put a new battery in it, and ride it out for another couple of years, and just
Yeah, if
see what the world looks like then. Maybe society will have collapsed, and we'll be,
yeah,
stripping our phones for parts.
if
Yeah,
your
maybe we'll
battery
have bigger problems than new iPhone.
Horizon Zero Dawn
have
stuff,
bigger
baby.
problems. But I also say, like, yeah, if your battery is good, like that, your phone will continue to last for a long time. And I don't know if you're hyped for Apple Intelligence. I don't know if anybody should be super hyped for Apple Intelligence. So it's like not a big deal either. I will say I have done interviews where I've done like the voice memos thing because I have a 15 Pro Max, so that supports Apple Intelligence there. Voice memo auto transcription is a very nice thing to have. Just
Yes,
to sit and type and
absolutely.
have the words come in and also have that saved immediately, and I can like refer to that. Stuff like that is useful. And if you have, I'd say, a very very old phone, um, it may be worth upgrading to be able to do some of those things. We're also looking forward to like what are the new devices going to be from Apple this year. There's the thinner iPhone people are thinking about. There's the worry that iPhone prices in general will change. Wasn't there a story that Apple products will essentially be exempt from some of these tariffs too? I have to double check that.
Yeah, it's
Everything
impossible to
changes.
say.
Literally the next
Yeah.
day, something could change. So
Yeah.
there's a lot we don't know here. And yeah, any other thoughts on PS5 prices or just like rising prices in general, Nate or Ben?
Yeah, I just think, like you said, like the spending power of people is going to go down, and like you said, I think it's probably more crucial to think about stuff like your savings and your cost of living stuff, your rent or home owner payments, and food and all that good stuff. But like, yeah, I think people are just gonna have to like keep stuff longer, and a PS5 is a lovely luxury. Don't get me wrong, but you know, like if you have to save for an extra 2 months to get it, like, is that really the end of the world? I
Yeah,
kind of don't
yeah.
think. Comparatively speaking, you know, we'll just have to see what it turns out to be like. I'll be very curious to see what iPhone pricing will be like in
Oh, I can
about 5 months. Like that'll be kind of one of the bellwethers, I think, for like what it's gonna be like. Because if they, bump prices on everything by $200 or $300, like that will radically change things.
We're still waiting to see what Nintendo's gonna do, right? We still don't have US.
Right. We still do not
Yep.
have a pre-order
Don't
timeline.
have a US pre-order, and like I am mentally preparing myself for the possibility that the price is going to go up. I also remember when the PS5 Pro came out and we were talking with Jess about, she's like, you don't need it, but it's really, really great. And I asked, my frugal question of like, how relevant is this machine going to be? Because it feels like we're at the end of this console cycle. And
Mhm.
she said, actually, the console cycles are getting longer and longer, so it might make sense to get a PS5 Pro. I'm personally going to try to goad one of my friends into getting a PS5 Pro so I can buy their PS5
Yeah.
standard. And uh, it's going to
To
be
that point,
interesting to see what the like device manufacturers are going to do with the rollouts for the new consoles, depending on what the economic picture looks like when they're ready to do that announcement.
I mean, I would say the PS5 still has easy 5 years left because
Yeah.
until about 2 years ago, almost every big game was coming to both the 4 and the 5, right?
A lot of
Uh,
games are still coming to the 4
they
and 5.
still are, but like there's at least Astrobot's exclusive. There's a handful of others that are going PS5 only at this point. So like that writing is on the wall. But like you said, if the console life cycle is longer and the hardware is more powerful, like yeah, they'll just keep it around for longer. So like I would say, yeah, if you don't have a PlayStation 5 yet and you're cool with buying one as a 5 to 10 year purchase, like yeah, maybe get the Pro if you really care about this stuff because you'll just have a better experience at the tail end of its life cycle, right?
If you have a nice TV, if you have a nice sound system, you really want to like see these games running at their best. Like the benefits of the PS5 Pro are there. Go check out my review. But
I
also,
was gonna say you reviewed it also, right?
I
Just checked
did.
it out. You checked it out. Okay.
And if you don't care that much about that stuff though, buy a used PS5, buy used, buy refurbished when you can. There's so many ways to save money on products like this. And I'm like, I do this for everything. Like I like a lot of Dyson products, like their vacuums, like their weird little gadgets. I never buy a Dyson
Do
product.
they have a good refurb store?
They have a great refurb store, and you can also buy refurbished from other places. There's always a gamble. It's like buying a used car or anything else. There's a gamble of like the quality of that refurbished device. But for me, I've never run into any major issues. I've had refurbished Roombas and all sorts
On
of
the
stuff. Yeah,
other hand, I can personally attest to Dyson customer service being really, really great.
yeah.
And
Mm.
if you have like an issue with like one of those little hoses that like you can't really replace because it's such an Apple product of a vacuum, they will just send you a new vacuum. So
That's
I was
true.
gonna say, speaking of Apple, I can't remember the last time I bought a brand new Mac
Mhm.
or iPad because they're refurbished stuff. It comes out pretty quickly, maybe 6 months after the new one's released. You'll find refurbs. You'll save $300. They're same warranty. They always physically are fine. Like yeah, I've been buying refurb Macs for like 15 years now.
So, Nate, one more question before we move to the next topic. If you were to guess how much life the PS5 has left and how many of those years are overlap years with the next console, what would you say?
I would say so. It's 2025. I would say new console in 28 or 29,
Yeah, yeah.
and then the PS5 continuing to get game support with new releases for another 2 to 3 years, probably. So into the 2030s.
Wow, you're thinking that long?
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it's only 5 years away, which is crazy, but it's upsetting.
And come to think of like the PlayStation 6 may be the last like typical console in general to like a thing under your TV that is only for video games. Because who knows what Microsoft is going to do? Like everyone's thinking like we will see a handheld for sure they can just diversify their business into other ways. They don't have to be the super powerful box under your TV. That box can be other things. Nintendo just gave up on it entirely. It's just like, hey, it's a thing in your hands, and occasionally it's a thing under your TV.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I think there will be a PS6 most likely, but
yes, yes,
there is a world where I could see video gaming having moved to whatever the next iteration is going to look like
yeah. I think Sony
before that
is the
happens.
last one standing as like traditional console makers,
Yeah.
basically.
Okay, we got to get to our last piece of broccoli now.
Okay.
Devendra, tell us about that whistleblower.
Yeah. One big story that dropped from NPR this week, written by Jenna McLaughlin. I believe she also did the actual audio report too. It's called "A Whistleblower's Disclosure Details How Doge May Have Taken Sensitive Labor Data." It's really long. Took me a while to read. It's kind of technical and it's kind of deep, but I think everybody should read this. If you listen to this podcast, you should read this. This is a deep recounting of how Doge basically jumped into the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, which is an organization that investigates and adjudicates complaints about unfair labor practices. So that's stuff like union building and stuff around unions and stuff around like employee complaints against companies too. One of their IT people basically has become a whistleblower to who has divulged like a lot of the details about what Doge has been doing. His name is Daniel Barulis. Uh, Also, by the way, what an IT guy face. Like this guy looks like every IT guy I've worked with. Like yeah, you could just stamp out clones of IT guys at this point. But he was somebody who said he wanted to serve his country and help people. He thought this organization was going to be the place to do it. He was kind of shocked by seeing what those people have been doing, and that involved putting in backdoors in the networks. It seems like it involved a massive spike of data that was taken away, and they don't know what data it was. And it's a wild story because at one point he was personally threatened, like quietly threatened in the way a mob boss would threaten somebody. um there were pictures attached to, I think, his office door of him from an overhead view from a drone, like looking at him walking his dog. There was personal information about him in there too, just like a veil threat, like, hey, shut up, stop asking about what Doge is doing.
Was
Literally,
it
we know where you live.
Yeah, we know where you live. We know what your dog looks like. We'll get your
was it
dog.
specific talking about what kind of drone? Are we talking about like a predator drone, like black and
No,
white? Okay, we're
predator
talking about a
drones. We don't have
consumer drone.
predator drones running in America. Not
Uh,
yet.
allegedly.
Not yet. You wouldn't, and those things are really loud and huge, so you would know. But no, a consumer drone can totally do this. But the whole thing is that this is a wild story. It shows the extent to which Doge has been siphoning data, and everybody within these organizations are trying to fight against it. And we just don't know. There's a lot of personal information here. There's social security information. There's information that could be used by Elon Musk when it comes to things around SpaceX, because I believe SpaceX employee complaints went to the NLRB. So there's stuff that could be relevant to Musk internally. There's stuff that could be used by enemy actors outside the state. Once the Doge employees basically started opening up a hole in the NLRB network, they noticed pings from like Russia, from an account that was using from an IP address that was using the correct username and password that the Doge people have created. This Russian entity kind of knew that and was trying to access it as well. I don't believe they actually got access to it, but we don't know. There's so much we don't know about what the hell Doge is doing. Where has this data gone? What are these people really up to? It is a wild ride. And this whole, when I said enemy of the stupid state, that's kind of what this feels like. It feels like the movie Enemy of the State, which is great. But was also more about like a vast government conspiracy. This is more like a really stupid thing we're doing of like highly technical people stealing data from government agencies for the dreams and ambitions of a billionaire and maybe his president lackey. So wild story. Check it out. It's worth the read. It's very long. And yeah, great to see NPR doing reporting like this, because I've been a little disappointed by some of their sort of like equivocating in other reports around Trump and Doge and other things. So this has been great.
This one feels on the level of the stuff that Wired has been doing, I would say.
Yeah.
I feel like Wired was the first to like really get on top of Doge and like do lots of in-depth stuff like this, and this is kind of the next phase of that. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say agree with you. I'm glad to see some of our reputable publications continuing to chase these stories.
Good to see Wired, and also like good to see like in general tech publications just feel better equipped to detail some of this because Doge is so directly tech related. 44 Media
Yep.
has done a bunch of great reporting. Wired's ready for this.
Oh yeah.
Jenna McLaughlin has been a cybersecurity reporter for a long time, so she's just not like a random NPR person either. So this is great. This is good to see, and I don't know. Maybe we will have some action against Doge because of all this. And what we are seeing is like a little bit of mayhem out in the real world too. There are reports that crosswalks in Silicon Valley are hacked with like AI-ified AI versions of Zuckerberg and Musk voices. Go check out the videos around that stuff. It's really funny to see. I think there are reports around one in Seattle too, or near.
It's extremely dystopian but funny just to like crosswalk and then like hear it talking to you. Only qualm about all this is like it messes with accessibility for people who maybe vision or hearing impaired as they're trying to cross the street. So that's not great, but it's
Maybe you could work
still hard.
into your anarchic hacking. Like work on it. Hey, walk. Mark Zuckerberg says walk, walk.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to drop some examples of what the crosswalk said into the audio episode. But imagine you press the button at the corner, you get, whatever sound like that tells you, yes, you press the button, like wait. And then a voice comes on and says, hey, it's Mark Zuckerberg. Sorry, we're like jamming AI into everything. Actually, let's listen to that actual audio right now. And then I'll drop in another couple ones.
All good. Yeah, I think we'll probably. Let me just do this real quick. Some quick sweet news. Also this morning, hey, there was a Nintendo Direct about Mario Kart World details, and this game looks good. I just
It looks real good.
If you want a distraction from kind of what's happening,
everything we just talked about.
Well, not fully tuning out from the world, but also there were those reports that playing Tetris could help you, avoid forming traumatic memories, right? It feels like it's playing any video game, doing anything to like distract.
Almost any video game.
It can kind of help with that. And Mario Kart looks like it. There's a jumping mechanic now. There is that jumping mechanic you can use to like drive on the wall for a little bit.
That's cool.
A lot of fun little things, just like rechanging, like basically flipping the way we think of Mario Kart. I love all this stuff. I've played so much Mario Kart 8, but even more now that my daughter's into it. Nate, I feel like you're a bit of a Mario Kart fiend because we used to do office battles.
Yeah, God, that was a long time ago. Shortly after the Switch came out, we would play. We would play in the office after work. Yeah, I've loved the series since the first one. I got the first one on Super Nintendo. Many high points, few low points. I remember the DS one was great on the Nintendo DS.
Yeah.
In Mario Kart 8 was great. I didn't spend as much time with it as I did with the other ones, I think. And I'm like, maybe I need to go back to it in preparation for Mario Kart World. But World looks awesome.
It's only a couple months away, I guess. But yeah, go back. You own it, right?
So I do, yeah. Just and I've played it a fair bit, but just not like I haven't like beat every course or like seen every single thing you can. But
I had to buy another copy of it because once my daughter started playing, I was like, oh no, we both need to play it. Oh no, I need another copy of the freaking game.
Does she have a Switch Lite or something?
She has a Switch Lite that she plays, and it's perfect for a kid, perfect size and everything. I also want to call out there's a rewind feature. Very much like a rewind, which is kind of cool. If you miss a jump or something, like these tracks look really complex. Like you can jump, like rewind and try it again, but doesn't rewind for everybody. So other people keep driving. You
have to weigh how much value there is to
like, am I going to try to do this, or am I going to keep my lead, or whatever? Fun stuff. And also the game just looks amazing. Like it graphically looks amazing. I cannot wait for this world map and whatever.
It's a perfect launch game because I think you'll be able to put so much time into it. So even if there aren't a lot of other like Switch 2 exclusives right at the jump, like having one this good is the way to go. It's not Zelda, but it's got a similar, I think, kind of scope where you can just like lose yourself in it for a long time.
For sure. And also this is a game we will be playing forever, for a very long time. Look at how long Mario Kart 8 lasted. I bought that on the Wii U back in the day.
That's wild, yeah.
So yeah, we'll keep seeing it for sure. Let's move on to stuff from around Engadget. Hey, I want to shout out my review of the NVIDIA RTX 5060 Ti, 16 gigabyte version of that. pretty decent video card. This is like their higher end, low end one. Like it's under $500, but has a lot of
Higher end, low end.
yeah, top level, low end. I don't know. It's under $500, $429 for this particular model. But of course, prices will explode. Already in the GPU industry, it will be even worse once tariff stuff hits. It is weird that this one has 16 gigabytes of RAM when the 5070, which I did not like as much. That one has 12 gigabytes, I believe. So very, very weird choices by NVIDIA this time around. I think for a lot of people, the 5060 Ti will be a smarter buy. And they also announced that, hey, the plain 5060, which we have not tested yet, that's going to be $299. It's going to be coming sometime next month. Guess we'll see what it does. But the 5060 Ti, really good for 1080p, really good for 1440p, can do ray tracing, frame generation helps quite a bit. I got some really high frame rates, and I was playing a bunch of Overwatch 2 lately. I've been getting back into that. Easily over 300 FPS with with DLSS, but in 1440p at max graphics. That's pretty good. That'll fill out most 1440p screens. And if you have a 1080p screen at a really, really high refresh rate, it'll be even more. I'm also kind of related to all this. I'm testing a 480 hertz 1440p monitor, so this will not fill that out. You need a much more powerful video card for that, but kind of where I am. That's why I'm testing Overwatch 2 now. What are you up to, Nate?
480 hertz sounds crazy.
480
Excited to see what you think of that. Yeah, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, I have been testing the Light Phone 3, which is a super minimal, super basic phone.
That's still
Light's
too
been around.
expensive.
We can talk about that after I publish the review.
Yeah.
But the gist is like it doesn't have a lot of tools on it, so you don't get sucked into doom scrolling, which, given the state of the world, I kind of appreciate. That said, it is definitely not the kind of thing I could use full time for a number of reasons. Surprising to me, the biggest one is that it doesn't really have autocorrect, so using it for texting is really tough, and especially given the way people text now as like real time back and forth conversation and not just like I'm on my way messages. Like it's fine for that, but if you want to have like an actual text conversation, it quickly goes downhill. But it's been fun and interesting to try for sure. And then other than that, I reviewed The Last of Us season 2 and did a little recap of the first episode.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's there's 6 more, so it'll be going on until mid-May or whatever. So far, so good.
Let's move right into our pop culture picks then, because I feel like we both have thoughts on Last of Us season 2, and I've only seen the first episode so far. They're already making some tweaks to the way we have experienced The Last of Us 2.
Yep.
I was not the biggest fan of that game because I feel like there was one like overarching theme that just beat you over the head with over and over again. I did find season 1 of The Last of Us show to be more nuanced than the game, so maybe this season, also upcoming seasons too, right? They're splitting up part 2 into 2 seasons or more.
My guess is, so having seen the entire season, my guess is it'll be 2. Obviously, you never know, but I would have a hard time seeing them stretching it out further than that.
I need to talk to you about where this season ends in, because I'm really curious about that. But yeah, there are things we're waiting for.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. Things happen early on in The Last of Us 2. I'm like, when are you going to do that? When you shock the world, I guess. I don't know.
I think that it's going to be. I think I would agree that, like the show, like the first season, it'll be a little more nuanced. I think that the thing that the first season did well was like they aren't unstoppable killing machines because they're not video game characters. So as a result of that, like Ellie's like in part 2, her like rampage through Seattle is going to have to be more realistic, right? Like you're not going to see her kill 50 people in this season because that isn't possible. But they are ratcheting up the presence of the infected, which I appreciate. They feel more of a constant threat. Taking on going one-on-one with them, it feels like a dangerous thing in this world, and I like that.
It's good stuff. We had a short glimpse of Caitlin Dever as Abby, too, who is the significant other main character in The Last of Us part 2. I love her as an actress. I've loved her since Justified. She has been fantastic in everything she's in, so I think she is phenomenal. I'm a little sad she does not have the killer guns that Abby of the game does, because Abby of the game is like huge and buff and everything.
Yeah, I heard Craig Mazin or Neil Druckmann talk about that. I think the gist was like in the game that was so she played differently, which makes sense, and they don't have to worry about that in the show. So they're like, we just want to get the best person for it possible.
It's true, but also you don't really get to see like buff female main characters like that
Yeah,
very
yeah,
often in games. Like it was
yeah.
just
It's cool.
totally different for me.
Yep.
So that was a kind of cool thing. But also, yeah, shout out to the Last of Us podcast. I love that they're doing that. Craig Mazin, what's his name? Voice of
Troy Baker. Yeah.
Joel. Yeah, Troy Baker is hosting it, so it's kind of
Yep.
cool. You get a bit of Joel voice, and you get hear them talking about it. I've listened to when Craig Mazin was doing Chernobyl. He did a podcast around that too, and it was really interesting to listen to. So
Yeah.
very, very good first episode. You're a fan of the second season overall?
I am. Yeah. I think I have a few quibbles that I'll save for when it wraps up.
Mhm.
It's a tough. I mean, it's a tough story to adapt, and I think they're doing a really interesting job with it. They've made the changes they've made are smart. And the one that I'm seeing most people bump on was the introduction of Abby and her crew at the very beginning of episode one. Most people I've talked to who have played the game are bumping on that a little bit and saying it feels like it's going to remove some of the dramatic tension. So I'm curious. I have a few friends who didn't play the games who are a big fan of the show, and I want to see how they feel about it. I'm sure
Yeah.
since they're not going to be comparing it, they won't have that same experience. But like, I'll be curious when it all wraps up to be like if they tripped up on that at all.
The main difference is that in the game you're playing as Abby at a certain point, and there's like no
Right.
context to it. You don't know why you're this character. You don't kind of know what's
Yep.
happening, and they reveal
There's
like
small hints,
spoiler
and then
of the
yeah,
game, but the reveal that she's a Firefly comes later, a little bit
yeah,
later. But I
yep.
also felt like, yeah, of course she is, dude. Like who else are we? What other humans are around here?
Right. Well, exactly. Like in the world they've established in the show, like that mystery is a little less crucial, I suppose. And I think they need to get people on board with understanding who she is faster, just because of the nature of watching something every week versus playing it in multi-hour stretches or whatever.
For sure. So yeah, I cannot wait to see where this goes. There's also some other like Love, Death, and Robots has new stuff coming. I talked about the latest season of Black Mirror last week, but yeah, that's fantastic. So great time
Oh,
for
the pit
stuff.
finished the pit last weekend. So good. Yeah,
So good. Give Noah Wiley the Emmy now.
he's such a great dude.
Good dude, good actor, great stuff all around. Yeah. Okay, I think we can wrap. Just give me a second.
I can do the outro if you want.
Go for it.
Thanks everybody for listening. Our theme music is by game composer Dale North. Our outro music is by our former managing editor Terrence O'Brien. The podcast is produced by me, Ben Ellman. You can find Nate online at
I am at Nate Ingram on Threads and Blue Sky.
and you can find Devindra online at
Devindra on Blue Sky, and I podcast about movies and TV at the Filmcast at thefilmcast.com.
don't at me at Ben Ellman or no, hey Bellman at heybellman.bluesky.social. It's such a long domain now.
You don't have
Email us at podcast@engadget.com. Leave us a review on iTunes because I promise that helps. And subscribe on anything that gets podcasts. That includes Spotify.
Yeah, stay tuned to the end of this episode, or stay tuned for my chat with Isaiah Saxon, the director of The Legend of Ochi.
Okay, we can talk to chat a bit more, but we do have to go sometime soon.
Yeah.
I have to go now, so I will see you guys later.
All right, see you, man.
All right, bye.
See you, Nate. Thank you. All right, can you talk to chat for a bit, Ben? I'll be right back.
Yes. Yeah, so Mark Dell says it took me a while to beat Last of Us 2. It came out at a pretty stressful time and would really rather escape into Animal Crossing than stress and drama. That is 100% valid, especially for me. Let me focus on me, actually. There we go. Yeah, like I don't like to externalize my feelings in video game form. Devindra really loves to do that, and what I want to do is the exact opposite, which is honestly why I stopped playing Helldivers quite so much around the 2024 American election. But we'll leave that sitting where it is. I've been playing a lot more Ghost of Tsushima recently. Jared the Geek says that first new Black Mirror episode was bleak. That is another thing that I don't watch so much anymore. Jared, do you remember Shut Up and Dance with who was the kid character? Because I remember it was not Jorah Mormont. It was the cast of that was Jerome Flynn, the guy who played um darn it, the guy who played Braun in Game of Thrones, excuse me, and also Alex Lothar, who what Netflix show was he in? He was in the one where he was like a sociopath or something. Oh, The End of the Effing World. That's right. And so after I watched Shut Up and Dance, I thought, okay, it's just like a little embarrassing extortion story on this episode of Black Mirror. And then there was that one twist at the very, very end that just made me feel so sick to my stomach that I was like, I think I have to quit this entire thing. Mark Dell says, I need to get back to the Playdate. Don't they have a Playdate event today? You can ask Cheyenne about that. If you're taking a look at the website, and you absolutely should go to the Engadget website, Cheyenne seems to be the Engadget Playdate correspondent.
I know
And I
I
think
had
that's
the
really
thing
cool.
since pretty much launch, and I've spent maybe 2 hours with it. I wish the games compelled me more. It is a cool little object. I will say that. My kids really love it.
Mears Nook said, Shut Up and Dance was wild. It makes you think what happened was morally right or wrong.
hmm
Yeah, that's Black Mirror in a
Black Mirror.
nutshell, basically.
I
Um,
think like it's become less a bit edgelordy over time. Somebody pointed out the end of the first episode in the season. Yes, it's bleak. It's not as like I don't know, tech dumb, tech bad as the show used to be. And there's some really good stuff here. The Paul Giamatti episode, I think, is an all timer for the series, and also one of the best things he's ever done as an actor. And he's done so many great things. So
yeah, seriously. Declan says, I hear there's an episode of Black Mirror that's different for different viewers. Are you talking about Bandersnatch, or is there a different one?
the interactive one, I have not heard about different for different people in general. But yeah.
Mark Dell says the Playdate event is in 35 minutes. So, yeah, we can log off and you can go directly to the Playdate event or check out the Playdate coverage, maybe on Engadget.
Yeah.
D-Man says Playdate is a little overpriced, but I try to support quirky gadgets. I don't know if Apple Vision Pro. I don't know Apple Vision Pro, but don't mean I don't want to. Thanks, Mark, for the reminder. And Mears Nook says we're again talking about Black Mirror, like the one where the woman keeps getting reset in that fake town because she killed that little girl. That also sounds a little bit like Westworld, actually.
Yeah. I mean, they're kind of doing both the same thing for a while. Deeper Nine points out something I've been seeing. People are now running two GPUs, one for graphics and one that is doing entirely AI frame generation. There's this new thing people have been testing out.
So it's like
That's
one card for like actually running the game and another card for DLSS specifically.
kind of stuff for similar to DLSS. It seems more like just straight up interpolation. I think a lot of gamers are like overselling the benefits of this, but I do. If you look behind me, I've got a lot of video cards, so I kind of want to play with this at some point. I hear the interpolation is not that good though. I hear like text and some things you'll see issues. So I guess we'll see. It sounds like a cool thing. Deeper Nine says it's crazy good. What I found with the DLSS 4 frame gen stuff is that it looks clean. It doesn't. It adds a little bit of lag, but NVIDIA also has stuff in there to reduce lag, and I don't see any smeariness. It doesn't feel fake, so it feels like real frames. That's the real thing. If you get to that, then we'll see. Mark Dell's been using his 3D Voodoo 3000. Really, I'd love to see that card. That was in the era where I could not afford any like cool cool PC hardware. So I remember spending much of my high school senior year earning enough money to buy an ATI All-in Wonder so I could have a TV tuner card for college. That was fun.
Wow.
That was great times. I could record 24 in 480p or whatever and save it to my computer.
Mears Nook says, fingers crossed that the Xbox handheld won't be $1,000. Man, I don't know if we can make any
Can't make any
promises.
promises, but it'll be in the range of things we're seeing right now. Like the range right now is what the Steam Deck has laid out, so essentially $400 to $500. But I could see Microsoft even going cheaper. Like they can doesn't have to be the highest end hardware in the world. So I think there's that. Mo Esquire wanted to know about my stream setup. It is not a webcam, so I will tell you that it is. I'm running a Sony A7C, which is a full frame camera, a beautiful full frame camera. I'm running that over a Camlink 4K, but you can get a really similar look with any mirrorless camera, to be honest. All you need is like a nice big sensor and a big lens. If you have an older Sony mirrorless around or whatever, plug into the Camlink, it should work fine. But yeah, I love this camera. It's just super expensive. I would not recommend anybody go with this setup just for webcams.
It does
So
look
yeah,
beautiful, though.
it's damn well better. This is a $2,000 camera, so yes, it should look good. Give me all the pixels. We're not even broadcasting in 4K, so this is just like nice 1080p.
Mears Nook says again, gaming is about to be a niche hobby by the end of the decade. Depends on how expensive things get.
Depends.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, games were $80. $80 in 1992 money. What is that today? That's a lot of money. That's like a Street Fighter 2, The World Warrior was $80 at Toys R Us. I distinctly remember this. And that's what is that today? $120? $150 today?
Give
Like,
me a
what?
second. I'm doing the
Yeah,
calculation.
do the thing. Games used to be even more expensive, and I think we had a great era. I think in the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, where it was like, okay, things came down to like $40. Budget games for $40. I also distinctly remember buying Final Fantasy Tactics for $40 because it went on sale pretty quickly, and I had just beaten Final Fantasy 7. So there were deals to be had, but it took a long time to get there.
So $80 in May of 1992 has the same buying power as $183
Jeez.
in March of 2025.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what Street Fighter 2 cost because that was a big cartridge.
Well, okay, given like that we figured that out, I saw another comment by I think a user called Armando Fernandez,
Mhm.
who said they should just sell the Switch 2 at $1,200 and make all the games free. And I was like, that's a really hot take. I don't know if I'm going to mention that on the
Bit of
stream,
a troll.
but looking back, maybe.
That's a bit of a troll because and we didn't fully get to say this in the episode, but there is reporting that Nintendo may just eat the tariff costs. Like if it's a 10% tariff on stuff incoming from where they're making Switch 2s, which I think is Vietnam. But if it's that base level tariff, they may just eat the costs because they're just Nintendo and that's what they do. But then, yeah, if it goes much higher than that, prices may rise. We shall see.
But I
But
don't know.
yeah,
Nintendo has been
$200 for
such like
Street
a
Fighter 2, totally worth it.
it's been such a feast or famine company, and you would think that they would want to like sock away cash while they have like a geyser going, because uh, we talked about it just last week or a couple of weeks ago, like when the Wii U tanked. Or no, actually, I think it was the GameCube was tanking, and they were like, "Okay, well, we got to figure something else out, or this company is going under." And then the Wii came out and everything was great again. And I think the same cycle happened with Wii U, and they were like, "Oh no, oh no, oh no!" They try the Switch, and then wow, everything is great again.
For sure. Nintendo has $14 billion in cash and reserves,
Oh
according
wow,
to
okay,
their
yeah,
latest
that's
filings. So it's
not an insignificant
not
sum.
insignificant. I don't think they're too worried. I think they know that they have so many cash cows right now that they could just keep pumping out stuff for the Switch and like still make money. Um, I think they could eat the cost, and it's better for them to eat the cost. And like they're the sort of company that would not betray their customers too much, but they have done dumb things. So who knows? Who knows? I think we can just wrap at this point.
Yep. So thanks everybody for watching the stream. You remember stuff that we forget. You make the stream better and make us feel a little smarter. OBS is by Devindra. Camera switching is by me. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week, folks. And yeah, be sure to listen to the audio episode for the interview with Isaiah Saxon. All right.